The film begins in 2001, where we see Gordon Gekko being released from prison after serving 8 years. He had been convicted of insider trading and mail fraud. As he walks out of prison, he is handed back his personal belongings, a check for the money he earned while incarcerated, and a train ticket. Outside the prison gates, he notices other inmates being welcomed by their families and friends. He quietly hopes someone might have come for him too, but no one is there. He walks out alone. The story then jumps forward 8 years to 2008. We are introduced to Jake Moore and his girlfriend, Winnie Gekko. Jake works at a major investment firm called Keller-Zabel Investments, while Winnie works for a media company. She tells Jake that she will be traveling to Washington over the weekend for work and then leaves. After she goes, Jake turns on the television. On screen, Gordon Gekko is promoting his new book, Is Greed Good?, on a talk show. He compares his glamorous Wall Street days with his time in prison and claims that he has changed. Now, he says, he is an author and financial lecturer. Since you cannot defeat the system, he explains, you criticize it and make money from doing so. Winnie becomes upset listening to her father speak and asks Jake to turn off the television. It is revealed here that Winnie is Gordon Gekko's daughter. Later, Jake attends a meeting at his firm where executives discuss their clean energy project. They believe it is not the right time to raise funds because the market is unstable. However, Jake strongly disagrees. He believes in the project and argues passionately before the meeting ends. Afterward, Jake meets Louis Zabel, the head of the company. Louis is angrily speaking to someone when he calls Jake into his office. Louis appreciates Jake's work ethic, and Jake admires him deeply. Both share a vision of building a clean energy future that would benefit both the environment and society. Despite the unstable market conditions, Louis surprises Jake by giving him a massive $1.5 million bonus. Shocked, Jake asks why. Louis replies that it is the reward for his hard work. Louis then shows Jake a spreadsheet. On the surface, it shows profits, but when examined closely, the numbers actually indicate losses. Confused, Louis asks how losses can appear as profits. Jake explains that they are profiting from the losses themselves through financial strategies. Although Jake tries to reassure him, Louis still seems uneasy. Later, Jake visits an expensive jewelry store and buys a diamond ring for Winnie. He plans to propose to her. That night, he attends a party with a friend and discusses investing his entire bonus into his own company, Keller-Zabel. His friend warns him not to trust the company completely and tries to stop him, but Jake refuses to listen. A few days later, chaos erupts at the office. The company's stock begins to crash rapidly. No one understands what is happening. Shares continue to fall. Jake holds onto his stock, refusing to sell. His friend repeatedly tells him that he is lying to himself and that the stock will not recover, urging him to sell before it is too late. Determined to understand the situation, Jake searches for Louis. He finds Louis' desk empty. When he asks the assistant, she says she does not know where he is and that he is not answering his phone. Eventually, Jake finds Louis calmly walking his dog in a park, while the office remains in panic. Jake demands to know what is going on, but Louis avoids giving direct answers. It becomes clear that Louis has lost hope in the company. Jake, however, is determined to save it. He reminds Louis that thousands of employees depend on the firm for their livelihoods, but Louis appears resigned to the company's collapse. Soon after, we see Louis at the Federal Reserve, desperately making one last attempt to secure a bailout for his company. He meets with the U.S. Treasury chairman, trying to convince him to step in and prevent the collapse. And this is where the real financial storm begins to unfold. Louis goes to the Federal Reserve and desperately asks for help to save his firm. But a man named James Breton completely crushes his hopes. James is Louis's former colleague, who has now become his rival. He is eager to see Louis fail. James offers to buy Louis' company for just $2 per share, even though only a month earlier it was trading at $49. Once a giant name on Wall Street, Louis Zabel now finds himself humiliated and cornered. Louis firmly refuses to sell at such an insulting price. James coldly replies that this is the best offer he will ever get, and if he does not accept it, the company will collapse into bankruptcy. Furious, Louis lashes out. As James prepares to leave, Louis asks if he can raise the offer to $6 per share. James responds that his final offer is $3 per share. After some negotiation, Louis comes down to $4, but James repeats mercilessly, $3 per share, not a penny more. The next morning, Louis wakes up to his alarm. He quietly has breakfast with his wife, then leaves the house and walks toward the train station. On the way, he stops at a supermarket, buys a newspaper and a snack, and then sits inside the station eating calmly. Suddenly, as a train approaches, without hesitation, he jumps in front of it. Soon after, Jake sees the devastating news on television. Louis Zabel has committed suicide by jumping in front of a train. Jake is shattered and begins to cry. At that moment, Winnie returns from her trip. She hugs him and says she has just heard the news and feels terrible. Overwhelmed with emotion, Jake suddenly proposes to her. With tears in her eyes, Winnie listens as he tells her how deeply he loves her and that he does not want to wait any longer. She happily accepts his proposal. Later, Jake attends one of Gordon Gekko's financial conferences with a friend. Gordon is delivering a lecture about his new book and the stock market. His words leave a strong impression on Jake. After the conference, Jake follows Gordon outside and introduces himself, revealing that he is Winnie's boyfriend and that they are planning to get married soon. Hearing this, Gordon gives him 10 minutes of his time. As they talk while walking toward the subway, Gordon openly discusses his strained relationship with his daughter. Winnie has not spoken to him for years because she blames him for her brother's death. During their conversation, Jake notices an old childhood photograph of Winnie in Gordon's possession and asks for it. But Gordon, who always believes in bargaining, tells Jake that he will give him the old photo only in exchange for a recent photograph of Winnie. He hands Jake his business card. Seizing the opportunity, Jake makes a deal. He will help Gordon reconnect with Winnie, but in return, Gordon must help him expose James. Gordon agrees, but reminds him that every deal has a price. From that point, Jake begins gathering information, while Gordon secretly feeds him insider insights. As Jake collects evidence, he spreads the information strategically through his contacts in the market. The rumors eventually reach James's investors. Fear spreads quickly, and investors begin pulling their money out of James's firm. The company's stock price starts collapsing, and James suffers a massive $120 million loss. Watching this unfold, Jake feels satisfied. Around this time, Jake and Winnie travel to Long Island to visit Jake's mother, Sylvia Moore, who works as a real estate agent. Her financial situation is unstable, and she asks Jake for financial help. Jake hesitates because he had previously given her money, which she invested in a poor property deal that failed. However, after repeated requests, he reluctantly gives her the money again. On their way back, Jake receives a call. James wants to meet him. That evening, Jake attends James's party. Instead of expressing anger, James shocks him with an unexpected offer. He wants Jake to join his firm. He makes it clear that if Jake refuses, his career on Wall Street will be over. Understanding the game, Jake accepts the offer, not out of fear, but because he wants to destroy James from within. The next morning, Jake meets Gordon again and informs him about the job offer. He also gives Gordon the recent photograph of Winnie that he had promised. Gordon then reveals something crucial. A private offshore hedge fund, named Locust Fund, had been aggressively betting against Keller Zabel investments. This means Louis's collapse was not just bad luck, was part of a calculated conspiracy. Gordon further explains that he and James were once business partners back in 1988, and he believes James was the one responsible for sending him to prison. Now, the battle between greed, revenge, and manipulation is fully underway, and the stakes are higher than ever. Gordon, as always, wants something in return. This time, he asks Jake to arrange a face-to-face meeting with Winnie. One evening, Jake and Winnie go out for dinner, and Gordon is already there waiting for them. During the dinner, Winnie quickly realizes that her father hasn't changed at all. Disappointed and hurt, she gets up and walks away. Jake runs after her, but Winnie warns him clearly, if he continues to associate with Gordon, one day he will be destroyed. Soon after, at James's office, Jake delivers a presentation about his fusion energy project to a group of Chinese investors. They are searching for a fresh investment opportunity, and Jake's vision impresses them deeply. They agree to invest. James is impressed by Jake's sharp thinking and initiative, and thanks to Jake's strategies, the company earns even bigger profits. Later, Jake and Winnie receive an invitation to a high-profile party hosted by James. Seeing this as an opportunity, Gordon Gekko also attends the party, hoping to reconnect with his daughter. During the event, Gordon unexpectedly runs into Bud Fox. Years ago, Gordon and Bud were business partners, and Bud had also gone to prison due to insider trading and mail fraud. Now living a clean and honest life, Bud congratulates Gordon but advises him to stay away from trouble. Meanwhile, James pulls Jake aside and shares major news. The Chinese investors have committed $150 million to the fusion energy project Jake has been promoting for years. This is the biggest victory of Jake's career so far. At the same time, Gordon approaches Winnie and sits beside her. Their conversation is tense, yet emotional. Gordon tells her that she's the only truly valuable thing in his life, his real wealth. No matter whether she accepts him as her father or not, she will always be his daughter. His words touch Winnie deeply. After years of anger and distance, she finally embraces him. Watching from afar, Jake becomes emotional as well. Jake immediately calls the head of the fusion energy project and shares the great news. They have secured investors. It feels like the dream is finally becoming reality, but neither of them realizes that a storm is approaching. By September 2008, the U.S. economy has entered a severe downturn. The global financial crisis wipes out billions of dollars from the stock market, turning into one of the worst financial collapses in history. At home, Jake tells Winnie that everything is falling apart. But Winnie gives him an even bigger piece of news. She is pregnant. Despite the chaos, Jake is overjoyed. The next day, Jake goes on a bike ride with James Breton, and James drops a shocking truth. He reveals that he has redirected all the Chinese investors' money into one of his solar projects instead of the fusion energy venture. According to him, solar energy offers monopoly potential, while fusion energy cannot be controlled the same way and is therefore less profitable. Furious, Jake immediately quits his job. He no longer wants to be part of that corrupt world. Disillusioned, he turns once again to Gordon. This time, Gordon offers a solution. He reveals that there is a 100 million trust fund in Switzerland under Winnie's name. Gordon created it in the 1980s when she was born. After her brother's death, Winnie distanced herself from that money, and when Gordon was released from prison, he hoped to use it to rebuild his financial power by launching a new investment firm. However, Winnie had always wanted to donate the money to charity. Gordon convinces Jake that if Winnie releases the fund, they can invest it in the fusion energy project and bring it back to life. Jake speaks to Winnie and persuades her. After some hesitation, she agrees, believing the money will remain in Jake's hands. But instead, Jake hands over the entire 100 million to Gordon. Around the same time, Jake's mother, Sylvia Moore, asks for money again. The housing market crash has devastated her, and she needs 100,000. This time, remembering her past risky investments, Jake gives her only a portion of the amount and makes it clear that he will not continue financing her bad decisions. Then Jake receives a disturbing phone call from the head of the fusion energy project. The funds never arrived in their account. Sensing something is terribly wrong, Jake rushes to Gordon's apartment. But when he arrives, what he sees leaves him stunned. Jake arrives at the apartment and finds it completely empty. Gordon is gone. In that moment, Jake understands that Gordon has betrayed him. He tells Winnie everything and explains that from the very beginning, he was only trying to repair the relationship between her and her father. But, as always, Gordon used him to serve his own purpose. Winnie, hurt and disappointed, reminds Jake that she had warned him to stay away from Gordon or he would destroy them. Feeling that Jake has broken her trust, she calls off their engagement. Jake leaves without saying another word. Soon, Jake discovers that Gordon Gekko is now in England. He travels there to confront him. Gordon is running a massive financial firm, built with the same 100 million he deceived from Winnie and Jake. Jake offers him a deal. If he returns Winnie's 100 million, he will gain something far more valuable, the chance to be part of his grandson's life. Jake even shows him the ultrasound video of the baby, hoping it will awaken some sense of family within him. For a brief moment, Gordon appears emotional, but almost immediately, he regains his composure and refuses. For him, giving up that wealth is a trade he is unwilling to make. Jake finally realizes that Gordon will never truly change and walks away. Over the next few weeks, Jake begins connecting the dots. He pieces together evidence about Louis' company collapse, the suspicious government bailout, the questionable deals that saved James's firm, and the insider information Gordon had previously gathered. Slowly, Jake compiles proof of a larger financial conspiracy. Meanwhile, Winnie, who has returned to journalism, receives all the documents and evidence from Jake. She publishes the full story, exposing everything to the world. Gradually, the scandal spreads across media platforms, and James Breton and his company become publicly disgraced. Investors begin withdrawing their money, stock prices crash, and the board of directors turns against James. The man who was once Wall Street's most powerful predator is now isolated and vulnerable. At the same time, Gordon's firm continues to grow. Investors who once ignored him now approach him for opportunities. Timing the market perfectly, Gordon shorts it at the right moment and turns the stolen 100 million into an astonishing 1 billion. Back in the US, investigations against James intensify. Media outlets relentlessly cover the scandal. One evening, Jake meets Winnie, and they talk about their unborn child. For a moment, their old love resurfaces. Suddenly, Gordon appears. This time, his expression seems different, as if he has truly changed. He reveals that he has transferred Winnie's 100 million into the Fusion Research Fund. He tells her that perhaps she might give him another chance to be her father again. 1 year later, surrounded by friends and family, Jake and Winnie celebrate their son's first birthday. Gordon is no longer just a billionaire. He has become a father and a grandfather who is reconnected with his family. Reunited and at peace, their lives move forward. And with this hopeful ending, the story concludes. So friends, that was the complete story of Wall Street Money Never Sleeps. Now, I really want to know, how was your experience watching this explanation? Did you enjoy the twists, the betrayal, and the rise and fall of these powerful characters? Tell me honestly in the comments what you felt after watching this story. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to hit the like button and let's set a target of 1,000 likes on this video. Share it with your friends who love finance dramas and intense money games. And if you're new here, don't forget to subscribe so you never miss the next exciting movie explanation. I'll see you in the next story. Until then, take care.